So you've seen this novella and you wonder, is this relevant to the series? Should I buy it? Should I read it? When should I read it? Well, the short answer is yes, you must read it. This is an absolute must. I didn't read it the first time. I read Powerless and I was unaware that this novel was so relevant to the story. I bought this novella at the same time as Powerless, but I thought it's one of those novellas that narrates the story of a side character. I will read it after Powerless. Wrong. Mistake. Huge mistake. Let me tell you why. Without spoilers, of course. This novella narrates the story of Peyton's friend Adina. And early on the book, Adina and Peyton somehow take different routes. We don't see Adina as much in some occasions during the book. And the events of this book happen exactly at the same time as the events in Powerless. This is a book that you read in tandem with Powerless. Because if you read Powerless first, you're gonna have a huge, massive spoiler for this book. And this was my greatest mistake, because by the time that I finished Powerless, I had this huge spoiler. So I didn't feel like picking up this book because I felt, well, I already know everything that happens. And I left it in my shelf and I didn't even know if I would feel like picking it up. And it was only when I did my reread of Powerless and Reckless in preparation to Fearless that I said, okay, let's try the tandem read that it's recommended. And I did the tandem read of this book together with Powerless, and it was just so much better. It was just beautiful. This story was amazing. If I already liked Adina in the trilogy, after I read this book, everything was just so much better. All my emotions were a lot more intense after reading this book. I just cannot stress enough the fact that you need to read this in tandem at the same time as Powerless. And there is an official list, which is this one. And I will link it also from the official site on the description below. But again, you need to read this. Do not skip this book. It is very relevant and you need to read it in tandem. I know it sounds painful, but honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal. This book is rather short, so you will find yourself reading perhaps one chapter from this book, 10 from Powerless, then switch back to one chapter here, another 5 from Powerless, then back here, etc. And this book happens pretty much, I would say, between 5% of the book and 90% of the book. That's where the events of this book take place within Powerless. So you cannot read it before because this book wouldn't make any sense. The whole main story is in Powerless. And then you read this complementary to Powerless at the same time. And you can read it afterwards like I did, but then again, you have a massive, 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 huge spoiler if you do that. So if you want to be completely surprised by everything, trust me, do the tandem read. Also, do not skip this book because there are a lot of references in this book that will be relevant later in the series, especially in Fearless. And there is another character in this book that is pretty relevant to the story, and it will take a pretty important role in Fearless. And you won't recognize him in Fearless, and you won't know his backstory, what he's capable of, and his motives if you do not read this book first. And again, aside from this being needed for the whole trilogy, it's a beautiful story. I love the story between these two characters, between Adina and the other character that appears in this book. And also, as a side note, this is such a beautiful story from a character that has quite a different personality to Peyton. Although Peyton and Adina's situation is quite similar in the way that they are both living under the same conditions and facing similar struggles, Adina has such a soft, beautiful, eternally optimistic type of personality. She's such a wonderful character, and you already see that in the main trilogy, but especially it shines here. And I found that the dedication in the beginning of this book is beautiful because it perfectly describes the character and the attitude of Adina, which is, to the girls with softer dreams, your purpose is just as powerful. Read it, trust me. Read it. I will leave a mark on your heart. So this was everything that I had to say for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this review. I hope that I could convince you, if you haven't read this yet, and that you fully immerse yourself into this world, and that you love the story and the characters as much as I did. Let me know in the comments if you're planning to read it, if you've read it, if you've liked it. And thanks a lot for watching. I will see you in the next video.